Grown-ass women carry so much. We juggle career, family, life admin, and then someone needs something simple. The Wi-Fi password, pet sitter instructions, or the name of that really great electrician whose number you know you saved somewhere. And suddenly you're digging through texts and emails, random notes, and that one place where you swear you wrote it down. It's those little things that make our heads explode. But what if there were a place for you to collect all of it? There is. The house manual is the guide that should have come with your home. But since it didn't, I made it for you. One place for everything your home needs, so it doesn't all have to live in your head. Get yours today at grownasswoman.guide/house manual. That's grownasswoman.guide/house manual.
The highest form of achievement is when our kids no longer need us.
Yeah.
And we're like, what? No, I want to be needed. Because it's kind of like a drug. It can be. There's something that feels really lovely for us as moms, especially for those of us who just kind of like took on everything.
Yeah. It's our identity. So then if this isn't my identity anymore, what is? And therein lies the work, my friend.
Therein lies the work.
Here's something we often forget about motherhood. The goal was always for them to leave. Not to need you less because you did something wrong, but because you did the job right. That's supposed to be the win. So why does it feel so hard? I'm Jackie McDougall, and this is the Grown-Ass Woman's Guide. Pam Tronson is a certified life coach who became her own very first client. After a very difficult confrontation with her adult daughters, Pam rebuilt those relationships from the ground up, and now she coaches other moms through the exact same rebuild. So you're living your life as a life coach, and one day you're like, I should help moms with daughters. That could not have come out of thin air. Where did that come from?
Well, you know what's funny was that when I finished the program, when I finished my certification as a life coach, everybody was like, okay, let's pick our niche. What's your niche? Who do you really want to work with? And I wasn't really sure. A lot of people pick their niche depending on challenges they've had in their own life. And I'm like, well, I kind of like my life and, my marriage is going well and I've got these lovely girls and we've got everything together. And I'm really not sure if there's anything, primal that I'm having to work through. And the universe went, oh, she wants a niche. Oh, we've got something for you, girlfriend. Just hang on. Yeah, one day woke up to an email that was pretty challenging to read, and so started the journey.
From your daughter, specifically, the email.
Yeah. It was one of those things that didn't start right away because I reached out to therapists and I reached out to a number of different sources to try to find my footing again. And what I found was that there are some great therapists out there that specialize in estrangement. A lot of them, to me, didn't have the experience that I wanted, not the experience as a therapist, but there's a very special relationship between a mom and their adult daughter. And I wanted somebody that could understand what I was going through. And those people weren't around, so I just decided the next best thing to do would be to just go back and become my very first best client. It was a 1-year program that I had gone through. I went back to day one.
Wow.
And just started working through everything. And it was one of the hardest and most challenging, but most, impactful things that I think I've ever done.
You just decided to I'm going to be my own life coach, and I'm going to coach myself in my relationship with my adult daughter. You have 2 daughters.
I do.
What did that look like? How was that challenging?
Well, it was a lot of writing, a lot of staring in the mirror, trying to figure out truthfully, it was trying to understand my habitual way of living, really, of reacting, of acting, of thinking, all of my patterns, all of these things that were so unconscious throughout most of my life. It was a time where I had to peel all that back and do what I could to make the unconscious conscious. So I could see my patterns, I could see my old programming, and where I could have a chance to change things. And one of the things that was presented to me was just this whole concept, and I think it's something, it was Discovery maybe 10 years ago, where they came to the realization that we do have the ability in our brains to kind of rewire who we are and how we think and all that kind of stuff. And, the whole concept of neuroplasticity. And I latched onto that and started asking myself the question, who do I need to be for this next phase of my life with my girls? Who do I need to be in the relationship? How do I need to start showing up? And it was a process literally of going through all of the, I think of some of the closets in our house, like the scary closets that you don't want to open because you don't know what's in it. I went through and opened a bunch of closets and looked in the corners and lifted the skirts on the bed and just went through so much of who I was. And then slowly, as I had a chance to rebuild the relationship with my daughter, I was able to use that new learning of myself and that new understanding of myself to be what I needed to be. And we got the ball rolling. And I'm delighted to share that I have relationships with both my daughters that feel fabulous and fulfilling and that just light me up every single time I have a chance to be with them or share with them, which I actually do get those chances now, which is really nice.
Man, spoiler alert. That's the best spoiler ever, because I want to talk about how you got from there to here, because I mean, they can be rough, but one of the things I have to point out is that you did not blame for a minute. You did not just share like what your daughter did wrong. And I'm not suggesting that it was all you and inner work, but that inner work, please correct me if I'm wrong, is the catalyst to everything else. Even though two people have their own, responsibility, that inner work is everything. Yeah. And so what did you discover? Like, move your daughter aside for a second. What did you discover about Pam in that time?
Well, it's interesting that you talk about that, because for me, like, I'm not going to pretend. I mean, in the beginning, it was dark. Yeah. It was very dark, one of the most challenging times in my life. But what I came to realize was that me, pounding my fist on the table, talking about how this was wrong, how it was so disrespectful, that they were, all of those thoughts that I had about it, that wasn't shifting the relationship. And to me, relationships connection begins here, and it begins with the story we tell. And I had to shift the story that I was telling. So I'm not going to pretend for a moment that in the beginning I was like, oh, this is a great thing that's happening in my life right now. And what a wonderful opportunity for me to learn and grow. That was definitely not the way. That was not what my days looked like in those early years. But it was the shift for me to see it as an opportunity as opposed to a black mark on my reputation, which is how it felt. But you were talking about what the transition was for me. I mean, there were so many things about me. And I have to say, I had to go back to a lot of, I had the most amazing mom and dad, delightful human beings. I was the fourth of four. I'm pretty sure I was an oops baby. My oldest brother is 17 years my senior, so there's a bit of a gap between all of us. And I kind of sorted through some of the things that I'd gone through in my childhood, not from a perspective of look at all the things my parents did wrong, but I was able to see the times in my own childhood that may have led me to be, to react in certain ways, or to be, I don't know, defensive, or to be a little in the self-righteous and controlling. And like, I just kind of,
Yeah.
I found those, not the reasons, but it was helpful to me to go, oh, you know what? This explains this. And here's this experience I had. And that makes sense that I might react like that. So basically what I started learning how to do, Jackie, and I think it's one of the most important thing for any mom going through something like this, you got to learn how to have your own back.
What does that look like?
Well, the moms I work with are gracious, lovely, honest women who really do want nothing more than to just be able to find a way to reconnect with their adult daughters. And there's a tendency when you start into the work to look back at all of the things you've done wrong, all of the mistakes you've made. And part of it is sometimes because you have someone else in your life who's pointing those things out to you.
Nice of them.
But it's easy to go on this mission to all the things I did wrong. And there was divorce is not always, but oftentimes a part of it. It's a very unique situation for every single person. But to look back at that as an example and say, if only I would have done that, and I never had time, or I was going through all these things, or even women who had a career while they were raising their kids. To go back and see all the times when they made mistakes. There's a couple of women that I've made them take a vow, hand in the air, friends. I, Pam Tronson, will, refuse to judge my 40-year-old self with my 65-year-old brain. Yeah. We're not going to do that. It's understanding all of the things that we were going through during that time.
Yeah.
Understanding all the balls we had in the air. Understanding that while our daughters have their own interpretation as to what that looked like, they're just sharing what it was like for them.
Right.
And we don't need to have them understand what it was like for them. We need to be able to look at what it was like for us.
Yes. And I want to go back a little bit. So the way I was raised, and a lot of people, in some ways, my parents were extremely strict. But then you get to a certain age, adulthood. We'll talk about the adulthood years. And you kind of figured things out on your own, right? You applied to college if you wanted to. You got a job. There wasn't a lot of input. And I think then we grow up going like, I'm going to provide more input. And then we provide so much input that I'm speaking for myself, what you intend with love, but then it's seen as like, you don't think I can do it on my own. Yes. Leave me alone. You're trying to control me. Yes. And all of those things. Now that they're adults, I never thought about having my own back, and I didn't really know how to do that. So you're going to have to teach all of us how to do that. But the one thing that I'm proud of is that I've taken accountability.
Yes.
So I would share just real quick, like this story of when they were little. I had 2 kids, and then I had a hysterectomy, and then we adopted the third.
Okay.
But I was 35 years old when I had the hysterectomy, and then adopted a child who that's its own set of trauma and all the stuff that you go through when you adopt a child.
Yes.
And I was out of my mind. There were no Instagram, there was no one talking about menopause, and certainly not surgical menopause. And I could not cope. And I had 3 small kids within 3 years of each other, the 3 of them. It was a lot. And there was a day, not my proudest moment, where I had like a little melamine, like a plastic plate. And I got so mad, and I sort of like frisbeed it across a room, and it smashed on the fireplace, on the mantle. And because it was, a brick or whatever. And I remember I gaslit the kids. Like, oh, that was an accident. That was an accident. And for not just in that moment, but for years, I gaslit these kids until one day I was like, you guys, you know what? There's no excuse, but I just want to give you a little bit of insight of when you were little, like what was going on with me. I had no hormone therapy. You might hear about that. This was happening. Your father was working all these hours. I was working from home. Like, it was insane for me.
Yeah.
And I am so sorry that I made you feel unsafe with my yelling and with that one particular plate throwing. Do you know they've never brought up the plate ever again?
Yeah.
Like, it's like by becoming accountable for my bad behavior, and all of us moms, humans, have moments of bad behavior, but the moment I was accountable and accountable for other things that weren't so dramatic, they've they understand more. We have a better relationship more. And I'm not sitting like, I still want to talk about all this because like, it is so hard to raise these kids and then let them just go out into the world, especially when they're living in your house. It's so weird.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I do know that accountability has changed my life. And do you find that to be true with yourself and your clients?
Absolutely. Well, and the thing is, to me, accountability lives on the other side of defensiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And so when our, kids come to us and they've got their experience of something that happened, and we immediately, kind of bristle up and tell them all the reasons why and get our finger in the air doing
Didn't
all
go
that
like
stuff.
that.
Oh, no, that certainly was not. I mean, like all those things that we do.
Yes.
Like that's the opposite of accountability. I think one of the greatest things we can do when our kids come at us and say, you did this, 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 and this, for us to be able to go, oh my God, yeah, I was just a crazy woman during those years. That had to have been so hard for you. I remember so many times where I did the wrong thing and where I made the wrong choices and you're like, tell me more about that. Oh my gosh, yeah, I completely agree. Like to be able to just, sometimes I think about it as instead of being across the table from them, to get shoulder to shoulder, to do what you need to do to bring yourself on the same team. So you can both be reflecting on, remember that time, from a place where it's safe for them to share.
Oh,
because I think that's really important. And when we're talking about that, Jackie, the thing that's so important to remember is that each of us as humans, let alone parents and children, we all have like a lens that we filter all of the information that comes to us through. And it's as a result of our genetics and our experiences in our family of origin in the early years and the framework. I often call it our emotional scaffolding. It's all of those things that we build, and it's our filter for all of the information that we receive. So you and I, as two adults, could go witness a very similar thing and take very different things from it.
yeah.
And when you take that and you overlay it onto the difference, I mean, I was 35 when I had my first child. Mm-hmm. 35 years of experience, compared to her experience, there's no way we're going to see things the same way.
Absolutely.
Like if we were to ever actually agree upon something, like that would be the surprise.
Right.
So being shocked that our daughter sees something completely, or our sons, or that our kids see something from a completely different standpoint than we do.
Of course
no
they do.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Like, what were you expecting, right?
Right. So let's bring in having your back though. So because I think sometimes we can go, there's accountability is here, but then sometimes we go so far into like, I was a terrible mother or da-da-da-da. And that side, that's not accountability. That's just like, now you're really making it about you.
Yes. No. And that's the important thing. And you nailed it. It's not making it about you. And the thing is, when you have your own back, when you're comfortable and centered and feel grounded in, I behave like a crazy woman. And you can say those words out loud and you have the realization of what was probably going on during that time. And you can kind of give yourself that hug.
Yeah.
And say, girlfriend, you did the best you could. Like you weren't trying to wake up and be a crazy mom. You were waking up every day trying to be the best version you could. And that wasn't your finest day.
Nope.
That was not your finest hour. But it's okay because you're a human. Like
Right.
when we forgive ourselves for the moments, we don't need to explain it to our kids. But
sure.
being able to have that love and compassion for yourself, I think is paramount. We laughed. There was a unit we did in my coach certification training about unconditional love. And part of it was unconditional self-love. And that was our joke, was like, oh, we all hate this part. This is the worst module ever. Because it's not an easy concept, especially for a woman.
Yeah.
Because if we do anything that feels like having our own back, it's like it hops towards the line of selfish.
Oh, yeah. For sure. How did you go from doing your own work, doing your own healing, into, okay, now I'm ready to help other people? And then when you opened the doors to that, what kind of problems were you seeing?
I had been working with moms, and then I'm trying to remember what my tagline was, but I was basically working with midlife moms. Mm-hmm. And because that was something that I had an experience of. Yeah. But I threw up a post on Instagram that said something to the effect of, I had gone into a friend's store and I'd bought myself a little coaster that said, "You are the mom everyone wishes they had." And I put up a post that said, "I bought this for myself." Because that's who I'm working towards being, or something like that.
Yeah.
And no one else in my house I know would buy this for me. And it was my experience of a viral post. And all of a sudden,
you struck a chord.
Yeah, I struck a chord with a lot of the people who were out there. And the thing that I see over and over and over again is, in the response to that post, people were saying, "Oh my God, I thought it was just me." Which is another something very indicative of motherhood at this phase, is we are burdened with so much shame. Like if we don't have that Instagram worthy picture of the family and all that kind of stuff, like the scar on our reputation that we carry around brings so much shame. And it's so hurtful and it's so dark. And, like when our kids are young, if there's something challenging we're going through, we're like, "Oh yeah, I can't believe he's still not potty trained or running, whatever it is." We share it with our friends and they're like, "Oh, don't worry, it's just a phase, or it's this or it's that." And we get through it, we get past it. But this part of the relationship, it's requiring us to create a new phase of motherhood. And there's so many women out there who feel emotionally scarred because they no longer have the relationship with, and I specialize in daughters, but they no longer have the relationship that they imagined they would have, or the relationship they're supposed to have, or the relationship that every other person seems to have except me.
Right.
And it's just not as uncommon as we would think. And I'm so excited about the work I get to do, because I see the dropping of walls with the women I work with, because they're finally amidst people. I have a group program. There's an alumni program that follows that. And one of my alumni moms said, "It's so nice to hang out with a bunch of other women who are imperfect moms."
Yeah.
And it's the realization that it's not just us. That yes, we may have made some mistakes, but like that's not the curse that we have to die with. It's not like we have to take those to our graves. We can explore ourselves and our own wiring and our past and our history and all those habitual ways of thinking and acting, and create a framework for something better. I often refrain from using that word.
Why?
Well, because I don't think anyone's doing anything wrong. This is just, like, we don't need to be better. And I think being better is maybe it's a buzzword in our society, doing better. And it's not that it's bad, but growth kind of gets a bad rap because you don't need to do any major work. And if you're doing it right in the first place, and we all as moms, we want to feel like we did a good job.
Yeah.
And I think it's required to believe you did a good job and go from there. Because I think confidence, I don't think growth or change comes without our ability to have our own back and without the self-confidence we need. Because otherwise we're building on a broken foundation.
Yeah. You talk about the comparison and the shame and all of that and the expectation. How much do you think those things contribute? Like this expectation that my children, my adult children, are going to behave in a certain way so that we can look like what it's supposed to look like over here. I can only imagine that creates a big divide.
Oh my gosh.
Like, and is that something common you're seeing that expectation and the comparison is that part of the problem?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the expectation. We all have I always refer to it as the crystal ball version of what the relationship should look like at this point in time in our lives, what the family should look like. But I think it's more than the family. I think it is the relationship we have with our kids. We want to be seen as that amazing mom. We have a lot of pride in what we've done. We've been blood, sweat, and tears for how many years? Like there's a lot of pride and deserved pride in the job that we've done. And the expectation of what it should look like, that's always a word that I tell people to be really careful when it comes up. But we have this version of what we think it should look like. And then we have the reality of what it is. And Byron Katie, someone I follow all the time, her line is always is that reality wins 100% of the time. But we suffer, we create our own suffering because we're at odds between these two things. And I always love to throw out the question, what if nothing's gone wrong? And people are always like, are you kidding me? Of course this has gone wrong. My reality looks nothing like the expectation I had for what my life would look like now. This is what it's supposed to look like. Says who? And I realized in the moments when I was deep in the thick of the estrangement, depending on where I was, if somebody would have said, oh no, this is what was always going to happen, I'd be like, oh, really? It wouldn't have landed well with me. So if there's anyone out there that's dealing with some really dark times, it's not that you were destined for this.
Yeah.
But I know for me and my growth, when I saw it as an opportunity and not that dark mark on my report card, the fail, that was when things changed.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing opportunity. And that's the part that I love so much about the work I do, because I've been able to help a lot of women kind of change the way they experience their relationship with their kids.
That's awesome. No contact is, you could look at it on social media, right? We're going to get into social media in a little bit and how that's like really changed the relationships. But no contact has become sort of a buzzword, like especially around the holidays, and they talk about people no contact. And, there are a variety of reasons, many of them like differing politics and beliefs and all of that. Do you get clients who are sort of in the middle of that no contact? And like, what are some of the reasons that exists for them?
I have a lot of clients who share that they have no real idea why. I have clients who cite differing politics. We've all been aware of how divisive that has been made to be through our world. And it's funny, I work with these women sometimes. I'm like, how could your daughter not want you in their life? And then slowly I get to see little bits of, and they become aware of little bits of I'm seeing the surface level, I'm sure, and women who have admitted that, yeah, this is the surface level, but this is what started it. And I'm sure this was her experience. But the thing with doing the work through estrangement is, I think for me, is cleaning up on our side in anticipation of the time when the relationship is reconciled, so that you can come to it from a clean and clear space.
Right.
So you will have already worked through so many of those different things. So you can be in that place where I always refer to it as a soft place to land. Can you create for them a soft place to land? And then just be open. It sounds so simple, but it's
hard.
a huge part of it. Yeah.
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 Do you find that when someone is like, I don't know why they went no contact, and you're like, like, do you tell them when you see it? Because you're a pretty intuitive person.
Here's the thing. I do complimentary coaching calls all the time. And for a lot of people, yes, it's often a part of, people come to me because they want to know about my programs. But for some people, they just want to come and they want to work through something. They want to say it out loud. They've been saying it out loud in their car for a long time. They want to share it with another human who has another perspective. And there's been many a times where I've done those calls, and there's a little part of me that goes, and your daughter's having a hard time with this relationship. I wonder why. People who will get on the calls and just, I intuitively have a sense of it. Yeah. And I will offer little bits and give them homework and things like that from my perspective. But it's such a layered, complex, challenging relationship that it doesn't, none of this happens spontaneously. And even in my coaching programs, I have the way that my group coaching program is set up is that instead of just coming to sit with me for an hour once a week, you get a bunch of videos that you can go back and watch again and again and again, because it's a process.
Yeah.
And even now, between my daughters and I, we've created this lovely little bond that's been going on for many years now. And there's still times where I'll just say something without really thinking a lot, and I'll call up the next day. Yesterday when I said XYZ, did that come across as harsh? It's a constant growing and learning, but as long as you've got to start from a place where you're open to the growth and you're open to the learning. And there is a power shift that happens when your kids become adults, because you're no longer the one that knows where everything is in the house and have the schedules. Like, you're no longer Charles in charge. You're watching them. I always say, I sit on the sidelines with pom-poms. Like, that's my biggest job.
Yeah.
And if they ever want me back down on the field again, I fall over myself to get to to get there, right? It's like, no, coming,
Yes, I think that's been one of my teachable moments, is that not everything is a teachable moment.
Yes.
Like, sometimes you can STF and just receive what they're saying. Like, I always feel like I have to impart this wisdom. This kid came home and they don't spend a lot of time at home. And so now I've got to use this time to make sure that they know, and it's like, they're out there living their lives. Like, receive who they are, receive what they want to tell you. Stop asking so many questions. So stop trying to impart your wisdom. And when I do that, and it takes that consistently, then there builds that trust where they actually want to talk to you. And it doesn't, I think that would go for anyone. Yeah. I think we have had these roles as mom for so long, right? This title, that we're still always going to be that, but it has to change, because if you continue that same identity as the person who got them to adulthood, it's not going to work.
No.
Another thing is that we look back, and if you look back at the generations, that parenting generation was like, children should be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. And then at a certain age, they were like, wiping their hands, like they're good, you're done. And of course our parents would still be there and for us and all that, but they didn't, at least mine didn't feel like that. Like my dad did not even jump in moments where he, like boyfriends, he could have said something,
Right?
he
Oh,
maybe should have said something, but he didn't. He just let me sort of like work
yeah.
through it and stuff. But I do feel like the moms of today are like, are you sure about that boyfriend? Da 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 da. Let me tell you the story. Yada yada yada. And then they wonder why their adult kids don't want anything to do with them.
Right.
Right. So like,
No.
how did we get here and how do we get away from it?
Well, I think one of the things that we have to consider is that we built our job description based on our experiences. It's the only way it happens, right? We reflected on how we were parented. We reflected on what it was like for us growing up. We reflected on all the things that we have knowledge of. And we raised our kids thinking that they would have a similar kind of experience. And I think that's one of the challenges is the world you and I grew up in
Is no longer
vastly different than the world our kids are growing up in.
Yeah.
And that realization can be very, it shakes the foundation for a lot of women. What do you mean I'm not the person? Well, and especially with the mother-daughter relationship, because traditionally, historically, there's been a passing of the torch from generation to generation. And it was your mother that was your guide and your mentor, and she taught you how to be a mother, and then she helped you mother and all those kinds of things. But that's just not the world we live in. Yet there are some people that have a hard time letting go of that role. And I think that this generation of moms that I'm a part of will be known as the generation of moms that did far too much for our kids.
Oh, yeah.
Because most of us were latchkey kids, most of us, I remember like when the lights came on, we should be home for dinner and had no idea where I was in between those moments of when I came home from school till dinner time.
Wasn't it magical?
Right? I laugh at all the posts, we were drinking out of the hose and just all of the things that just felt so normal to us are not a part of our kids' world. And for a lot of us as moms, I remember thinking, oh my God, if my parents only knew half of what was going on in my life, they would be mortified.
Which is why I think we try to sort of control a little bit, because we know what we got away with, and we know that we should have been dead. We know
3 or 4 times over.
right. And we know that there was a lot of pain and suffering and that maybe we didn't have to experience. But unfortunately, as we know, nobody could have told us differently to make us behave differently. Right. Do you think that there's a sense of rejection when a young adult wants independence? Is that what's happening?
I'm not saying that's what's happening for everybody, but I have met a lot of people who feel very rejected by the fact that they have all this wisdom and their daughter doesn't want any of it.
Yeah.
It's like, no. This is my job.
Right. I've been collecting this for years.
Exactly. I have this treasure trove. I've got this large sack of all of these bits for you to be able to grow and learn from. What do you mean you don't want my wisdom? A lot of moms feel very rejected. And in those moments, again, we're going back to having your back, to be able to go, instead of like hands on your hips going, how dare she, to be able to go, oh, okay, so I wonder what the components are here for the change. Like, why is this different? Why, how could I understand this differently? How can I look at this from a different perspective? Is there another way? Like, just to bring curiosity into it as opposed to assuming that you've been rejected.
Yes.
Because rejection is one of those nervous system, high speed activation, red light activation rejection will bring that out all the time. And then we're not acting from a rational, reasonable version of ourselves. We're acting from a more irrational, from a version of ourselves that thinks they're under threat.
Yeah. You know what keeps me going in those moments is my dad used to take certain like behavior, if you're late or, whatever behavior it was, personally.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking like, dude, you were not even in my brain when I made that decision. Like I wasn't even thinking about you. And you're taking this, I did not say this to him, but like you're taking this so personally when you weren't even on the radar. And I have to remind myself, and maybe it will help others listening, to go like, you might not be on the radar. And that's actually a good thing. Anyone walking around just constantly thinking about mom,
Yeah.
you may not have created an independent human.
But like to take that as a compliment.
Yeah. Yeah.
When our kids aren't walking
Yes.
around with their first thought,
Yes.
"Ooh, I hope my mom doesn't get upset by it." I mean, like, that's a
Yeah.
really good thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like that.
It's like you raised an independent human being.
Yeah, there was a book I read a while back, and they talked about the idea that in our vernacular, we talk about raising kids. But when we step back from it and realize we're not raising kids, we're trying to raise adults.
Right.
There's a huge difference. And the whole idea that one of the hardest things for us as humans, as parents, is to realize like the highest form of achievement is when our kids no longer need us.
Yeah.
And we're like, what?
Yeah.
No, I want to be needed, because it's kind of like a drug. It can be. There's something that feels really lovely for us as moms, especially for those of us who just kind of like took on everything.
Yeah. It's an identity. So then if this isn't my identity anymore, what is? And therein lies the work, my friend.
Therein lies the work. No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And it's this next phase of motherhood.
Yeah.
And when we are in these challenging relationships with our kids, to be able to see it, not that something's gone wrong, but that the door's being kicked open for us, to be able to step into another version. And it's a version that becomes a cyclist.
Yeah. Yeah. You're out there riding your tandem bike with your husband across the world. And absolutely.
But to open ourselves up to other aspects of our lives where we can create joy for ourselves without feeling guilty.
Yes, for sure.
And truthfully, Jackie, my kids I'd be, 6 or 7 hours on a plane ride itself before I was actually anywhere where I could be with them should something go wrong, God forbid. And that's been really hard, but it's also been, I have to believe that it was what was necessary for me to be able to go through this, walk through the ring of fire in order to get to the other side.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to create something for me, a life for me, whatever that looks like. And I had to get myself to a place where they were no longer responsible for my emotions. Oh my God, I got to tell you, the expression that grates on me more than anything is the one about how you're only as happy as your least happy child. Red flag. And it's not that we're not going to feel somewhat burdened or heavy-hearted or whatever it is when our kids are struggling. Of course, we don't want our kids to struggle. But struggling is also a part of being a human. And struggling is necessary. Now, both my girls have gone through some really challenging times in their lives. There's a part of me that would have, man, oh man, have done anything to have rushed in and wiped that slate clean so they didn't have to deal with that time in their life that was filled with so much anguish.
Yeah.
But that's also a part of life.
But if you've ever met a human being who's had other people swoop in and fix everything that they're horrible. I mean, I'm obviously partially kidding,
Yeah.
but they cannot cope. That's part of the human experience. I mean, it's so interesting because part of what makes me me is some of those challenges. And I think all of us, right? But I could only speak for myself. It's the challenges we've gone through and the way we've risen up after and again and whatever it is. And yet when we strip those same opportunities or we try to from someone else, you're actually harming and not really helping.
No, I couldn't agree more. And honestly, I was that mom who was like, you didn't make the soccer team? Let me go make a couple phone calls. You didn't make, like I was way too involved with
a strongly worded letter.
Oh gosh. I was that mom that believed that part of my job was to just make things more seamless I didn't want to see my kids struggle. And I
relate to that so much.
I know that I'm not alone, right? Yeah. I didn't want to see my kids struggle. And I think that's one of the reasons why my kids live 7 hours away from me. Because I no longer have the ability to wipe the slate clean for them, to pave the bumpy road for them. I don't have that ability any longer from a sheer physical standpoint.
Yeah.
And both, and for us, my relationship with both has flourished, I think partially because of that.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about social media and keeping up with the Joneses, seeing other people, the best friend, mother and daughters and all that. But what about the access to mental health, family systems, all this information that like, whether it's an expert or some rando on TikTok talking about it, do you think that helps moms understand what's going on? How does that impact the dynamic, having young people have that access?
Well, first and foremost, it's a fact, right? It's not like, is it happening? Clearly, this has been a huge impact on our kids' lives. And when I talked before about how we were raising them for a life that we didn't understand, we raised them based on what our experience was, thinking that those were the skills they needed. They need a wildly different skill set. I think it's challenging right now because the floodgates have been kicked open and they are, I don't want to say they're the guinea pigs, but we're still just learning about the impact that social media has. And our kids there haven't been any regulations. I don't know if that's even a possibility, but there hasn't been any, like, we're now starting to I wonder if that was a good thing to do. It's just starting to come forward. And like, there's a psychologist who talks about the concept, or they call it concept creep, the concept of concept creep. And it's that there were all of these words that for our generation, were a part of the therapeutic culture. Those were things you talk to your therapist about. And that all of those concepts are now being spoken about by random people on the internet. And they have, the meanings have changed. I know a lot of moms that just get so offended when their kids are using words like trauma. And even sometimes triggers. Mm-hmm. I have so many moms that come to me and they say, well, my daughter said, Mom, you're crossing my boundary. She says, I don't know what the hell a boundary is. So there's a lot of this vernacular that our kids are learning through online influencers, some therapists that offer advice online or whatever it is. And they're bringing this into the relationship when neither party necessarily has the same understanding of it. And I think it's unfortunate right now with especially with the whole estrangement piece, that our kids are having this presented to them as the most viable option for their own personal healing and growth. Because I think that relationships by nature are messy.
Yeah.
I think they're
absolutely.
They're supposed to be.
And I also, I see both sides of it because I see a lot of grown ass adults who should know better,
Yes.
who have an opportunity to go, I haven't raised adults in the same world I was in. Yeah. They live in a very, there's some older adults in my life who I regularly explain that my kids don't live in the same world as they did or as that I did. It's a very, very different world. And in some ways, I like that they have access to concepts that maybe they understand a little bit more. Concepts like that help me, right? And at the same time, there is no regulation so anybody could get on with any sort of degree or not degree and say whatever the hell they want. Discernment is absolutely key here. And also just that open mind that they did not grow up the way we grew up. But I want to ask you this, as far as like the estrangement or at least taking a break from another person, if in any relationship, let's just say in a romantic relationship, if somebody gaslit the other person, if somebody was not open to their point of view, their feelings, at some point we'd be like, you need to break up with that person, right? But just because they are blood related or, grew up, I feel like, I don't think that estrangement is like number one, but I do think that there has to be some sort of like, I understand where you're coming from, but this is what I need to do for myself until we both can come. Like if one person is not willing to do the work, just because they're the mother, I don't think they get the right to have access.
Yeah. And I completely understand what you're saying. And I think that there's a lot of women that stand in the place of, I would never talk to my parents like that.
Right. And that's because they'd hit you. It's a different world.
They get back against the wall. Oh my gosh. But it's a lot of people have an expectation about what it should look like and the undying gratitude and respect that their kids should have for them just because.
Yeah.
And while I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a time where kids can cut their parents a little bit of a break, depending on what it is.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
That kind of understanding and the willingness to see the big picture, I think that can be a part of that relationship. But seriously, if you have a relationship where mom is like, my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And I will not, and you shall not, and where the kids are not being heard. I mean, in another generation, those are the kids who would bite their tongue, bite their tongue, bite their tongue, bite their tongue, and then you'd never see them again.
Absolutely.
And those were definitely a part of it. But I think in the generation we have now, where our kids have the opportunity to realize that how they feel is important.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, abuse is abuse.
For sure.
I'm sure there's a clarity for a lot of people as to what's okay and what's not. And that has to be a clearly defined line in the sand. And, a lot of times I hear from parents, well, I had it way worse than that. That doesn't make it okay.
Every generation raises kids for the world they remember, not the one that's actually waiting for their kids. Pam's take? It's not that we did it wrong. It's that the job description changed out from under us without anyone telling us how to update it. You are bridging the gap. You are opening this opportunity to be better as women, right? Not just with our daughters, but just as for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so curious, like, I bet their friendships get better, their romantic relationships get better,
I have had so many people share that with me. They'll go through my program and they're like, you know what? These tools don't just work with my daughter. I'm starting to feel much better about my relationship with my husband. And that was absolutely my feeling. And the place that I got to, Jackie, not that I had such a sordid past, although I was kind of a wild child and I was that, there was things about me that, Others probably found a little bit challenging. But I got to the place in my life after I worked through all this where I was able to finally find that self-love. That wasn't a place I ever thought I was going to arrive at. And I think that's an option for all of us if we just are able to just remove some of the layers that we have over the years started to pile on top of our expectations for ourselves even.
Yeah. Do you find that women have to come in the back door? Like, I'm going to improve my relationship with my daughter in order to do the work to find the self-love. Because if we created programs that were like, you will have self-love, they're like, I'm good.
Yeah. I could never, if that's what I promoted, and that's certainly, that's not what my program's about, in case anyone's wondering. No, it would be very hard for a woman to look at something that was just for them.
Yeah.
And go, me, I'll do that. That sounds great because I want to be a better human being. Like, that's not going to happen.
Because I deserve it.
Right? That's the way women are wired.
Yeah. Not on our own. It's the whole system's behind that. So
absolutely. And it's something we always have to fight against. And I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for women because there is nothing more important than the relationship we have with our kids. It's a beautiful part of being a human.
And at the very least, we're showing them that it's never too late to do the work.
Yes.
It's never too late to find that self-love. Like just the example of the work.
Yes.
You know, whether they take it or not is not on you. Like their reaction to any of it is not on you.
Yeah.
But that work sounds so important.
I think it's magical. I think it's very fulfilling at a number of different levels. I think we have that ability when we can take the time to realize when we get locked into one way of thinking and to be able to just open up our lives and our minds and our hearts. And my line that I tell everybody in our coaching program is, what else could be true? And I think when we look at our lives with that kind of curiosity and just willingness to consider something else.
Absolutely. And so if somebody was listening right now and she's not in a great place with her adult kids or adult daughter, or what would you tell her? What can she do today to move in a positive direction?
Our own inner self-talk is incredibly important. And to be able to listen to the story she's telling about herself to herself, listen to the story that she's telling about her daughter to herself. And then my magic words, what else could be true?
What else could be true?
And what else might be going on? Is there another way I can look at this? And to be able to bring in and embrace the concept of curiosity. Amazing. I mean, for me, that's been a game changer.
Yeah.
Just to realize that there always is something else going on that we just don't see.
If this hit close to home, Pam is running a free 3-day workshop starting July 29th for moms who are second-guessing themselves with an adult daughter and, most importantly, are ready to stop. It's live each day for 3 days, but there are replays available if you can't make it live. You can find the link here in the show notes or visit grownasswoman.guide/daughter. I'm Jackie McDougall, and this is the Grown Ass Woman's Guide. Thank you so much for listening, and please consider sharing this episode with a friend. You know the one. She's struggling right now, and she really needs some support. Until next time, remember, you are a grown-ass woman. Act accordingly.